Kenzie Elston here, and she is known for her bright and beautiful, playful designs to celebrate the letter K. Kitsch. How do you feel about that? Kitsch,
Um,
kitschy. Like, is it a turn off to hear that term, or are you just embracing it?
I'm I'm just rolling with it. I mean, that's not the first, it's not, you're not the first person who has like associated my work with that word. Like I actually am doing a collection with a group, a company, and it's all called like Kitschy. So, and they came up with that. So I'm like, all right, let's just do it.
Yeah.
So I'm all in. I think sometimes it can have like a not negative connotation, but just like seem a little juvenile or play. I don't know, but that's me in my essence. So I just go with it.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to get at because I feel like a kitschy style like intentionally keeps that novice look. So you actually
Hmm.
have to work at being a little wonky and like bright and I don't know. Don't do you
Hmm.
have to feel like do you force yourself at some point like okay, let go of the criticism in my head or let go of the whatever. Do you feel yourself do that?
Yeah, I I think that for me, what helps is I tend to feel like I can be somewhat of a chameleon. So I like to put on different hats and I have my lane that like if you look at my feed on Instagram, it looks pretty cohesive and you can definitely see my touch of hand. And that's like the kitschy, youthful style. And that's just what I naturally spark to when I start drawing for my own, like my own self. But if I am working for a specific client, I do like to like try out something else that you might see it on shelf on a product and not even know that it's mine. And I'm totally fine with that. Like I don't need people to know that everything I touch is coming straight from me. Sometimes it's just nice to get some money.
So you work as a surface designer.
Mhm.
And that's what you're talking about. You get to see a lot of products. What are some of the products that you've been proud to see on shelves with your touch?
So yeah, so I do a lot of work for home decor companies or garden companies. So anything from like garden flags to like throw blankets, pillows, dishes, um, a lot of holiday products, so ornaments, little like giftable pieces. Um, and I've been doing a lot with greeting cards lately too, which has been really fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
And some puzzles. A lot of puzzles lately too. Puzzles are everywhere.
Nice. I also think of puzzles as needing like a lot of artwork, a
Hmm.
lot of like nooks of things.
Hmm.
And I think that kind of goes in line with this style, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a maximista kind of
Hmm.
way of going.
Well, I mean, one of my favorite things to do is trying to think of like what are those special little details that you might not notice right away, but there's something that you have to discover within a piece. And I love thinking of like silly things. Like I recently did a piece where I drew this teeny little worm in it and I gave it a tulip as a bucket hat. Like just like silly things where it's like nobody's probably going to notice this, but I think it's funny.
Yeah.
So
Someone's gonna notice it and it's gonna be like, yes, just for that little worm. I'm getting
Yeah,
this.
I think is trying to think of like what are those special little details that you might not notice. I discover things in other people's work like that. It really inspires me. So I just think it's a fun little added touch that makes people smile and sparks a little bit of extra joy. At least that's
Mhm.
the hope.
Would you say that's your goal in how you create?
Oh yeah, for sure. I actually used to like my very first job out of college and during it was also an internship, but I designed diapers and that was like our biggest thing was the discoverable details that like a mom would discover as she's like changing because it was the physical diaper itself, not the packaging.
Yeah,
And so that's always kind of just stuck with me. That's been like a thread throughout my entire career.
nice.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. It was a fun job. But then I was ready to like branch off and do my own thing.
So who inspires you? I mean, are there any artists or like folk art, like types of art that inspire you?
Oh yeah, there's like a million. I mean, Instagram is like an endless source of readily available inspiration. There's like plenty of artists that I always go back to and look for inspiration. I would say I love Susie Altman, if you're familiar,
Mhm.
and Victoria Ball, and uh, there are like some friends that I've also made on Instagram. Like I don't know if you know Shannon Snow. I love
Mhm.
her work, or Catherine Harrell,
Mhm.
um, and Allison Wilson. And then my mom, I don't know if you know, but my mom is, she's a surface licensing artist also. And my
Mhm.
parents started their own company. And so I actually technically am an employee of theirs. I work for them part-time, but it's kind of shifting to where I've been managing all of my own work. It's just like under the umbrella of their company name.
Mhm.
So she's, a driving force in my inspiration for sure.
Your mom, Lori.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Lori Siebert.
Yeah, cool. Uh,
Yeah.
since when have you been like into art? So.
Oh, since I was born. I think, growing up with such a creative person as a parent, she tried really hard to make sure she was never pushing it on me. And I had to like remind her and tell her that she never was. And I still to this day don't feel like she ever like pushed it too hard to where I felt like I had to go down that path.
Yeah.
But I think it definitely helped for me to be able to find what I wanted to do at such a young age.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been drawing since I could hold a crayon.
What do you see as like threads from since you were holding a crayon? Like, do you just keep coming back to certain things?
Well, I've always loved drawing flowers in kind of a folk arty type of way. Like even when I was little, I kind of always did there's like somewhat graphic, like blobby, but like whimsical and have like a folk feel to them. And then I've always just had a juvenile kind of aesthetic. That's just what I always come back to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I
Love
don't know
that.
if part of that is like because I worked on diapers and then I also have two little kids. So it's just, I see a lot of the art as I'm decorating their rooms and stuff. So it's just, I've just been in that lane for a long time.
But I
Yeah.
don't see your work necessarily limited to juvenile products
Well,
because of
that's
that.
good. Sometimes
No,
I feel
and
like
I
it
think that
doesn't.
that's something worth noting, right? I mean, you work in a lot of different categories and for a lot of different
Mhm.
demographics with this style. How does that work? Because I think a lot of times when we think about style, we think I'm limiting myself to just then this thing,
Yeah.
this outcome. But
Mhm.
that's not what you've seen, I don't think, from what I can
I
see.
don't, yeah, and I'm glad that you can recognize that too. It's kind of validating in a sense because sometimes when I look at my work, I do my personal, like, project on myself, say like, oh, I don't know if this is sophisticated enough.
Mm,
That's just, we always have those feelings of self-doubt. But hearing that it does have, that feel some of the time, when there's not a worm with a bucket hat, that is helpful to hear. I think honestly, I don't really have like a strong go do for that. I just kind of draw whatever like speaks to me.
mhm.
I don't know, a lot of research I think helps is that, I'm constantly pinning and finding different styles that I like and trying to figure out how I can sort of fit within a certain style that resonates with me.
Mhm. So, do you feel like you found your style?
Um, I mean, I definitely think that you can tell now, and even myself, I've started to be able to say like, oh yeah, I can definitely see myself in what I draw. Um, and I always am, you know, I have my tried and true methods that I go to, but I think it constantly evolves, and I think that's part of being an artist is that what one of the things that's so exciting is being able to explore and like figure out, well, maybe I can take it this way. And if I scroll through and look from when I really started to figure out my own personal style, which was during COVID in 2020, I can see a shift from where I was then to where I am now. And it's a gradual shift. It just happens naturally. But I think that's the beauty of creativity, is that you're just ebbing and flowing.
Yeah. So that's great, because I think like we all need to hear that style is something that like I feel pretty set on, and yet I'm constantly pushing it in different
Mhm.
directions. Not because I'm discontent, but just because that's like the artist spirit, to kind of explore
Yeah,
continually,
totally.
right?
I actually don't love physical painting. I partly because I just like, I don't know, I've just felt like I've never had the knack for it. I like to be able to draw with an eraser as much as with a paintbrush. And my mom's always like, "Well, you can just paint over it." I'm like, "No, that doesn't like register in my brain." Like I
Mm,
can't, I have to be able to control Z. So once I purchased an iPad at the end of 2020, I feel like I just kind of took off. Like things just sort of fell into place where I felt like totally comfortable and like, this is my media. This is what I feel like I need to be doing.
you're a PC girl, aren't you? Because I'm like,
No,
Command
I'm not.
Z, Command Z. Yeah. But I that's actually why I like painting, because I need less undo, and then I just I stall out, like trying to hit reverse and forward too much when I have
Yeah.
that option. So
And that's what's so great, is that, have our different processes and like what works best for us. And I think that's what makes art so exciting, is that it's different for everybody.
yeah. What one thing, this is I think my last question for you. I don't make any promises, but during that COVID time, like where you felt like you really honed in on your style, you mentioned just finding your media was one. Would you say there's something else that helped you kind of solidify by your way?
Um, I think I was like, I always felt like I had it in me, but I think because I just never really felt comfortable with a paintbrush, and I was at that point I was mostly working on my mom, like taking my mom's art and putting it on products, or like creating repeats from her paintings. So I sort of felt like I was like pushing myself down and like
Hmm.
kind of burying what I knew I had in me, but like out of necessity and just time. It just was this burning desire in my gut that was like, okay, you're doing stuff and you're creating for other people, but now it's time to like figure it out for yourself. And part of
Yeah.
that also was because, eventually my parents are going to retire, and what's my plan going to be when that happens? So I'm like, I need to figure this out.
Good time to do that now when the world is on pause, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot to that, like giving yourself time to just do whatever you want, like
Yeah.
without thinking about what is this for and is it going to work out, and just all the things that keep you from creating just truly from the heart.
Yeah, and I think the practice that really helped was, I decided my goal was, when I first started, was I'm going to draw something, whatever I want, every day and just see what happens. And I did that for a long time. I mean, it was probably a solid, like, I would say 10 months where I forced myself, and I even told my husband, I'm like, I need you to let me have time to draw one thing a day. And he was great too. Like he was really supportive, and like, cause I mean, we were balancing two little kids at home because they couldn't go to school. So we had to like, really carve out those like precious moments for each of us to have our own
That's a
time
lot.
for sanity.
Hmm. I don't want to go back to that.
I know. It was really tough, but I am thankful. Luckily, I didn't have any kids in school yet.
Mm.
Both my kids were still in preschool. So I think that, I don't know how parents who had school age children did it. I kudos to all of them.
We formed a co-op. Like we were like,
Yeah,
we have to divide and conquer. So yeah.
that's great. Yeah.
But thank you for your time.
Of
And
course. Thank you for including me.
just hearing you talk about your style or even kind of your fresh journey in the last 3 years and
Hmm.
how you already had the skills. You just needed to actually do what we're talking about, right? And finding
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
So I think that's really encouraging for anyone who would watch this.
Yeah, I know. I think that anybody can do it. It's just a matter of like setting aside time for yourself to figure out what you want to create and then grow from there.
Endeavor to explore your style together with us. We are enjoying each one of these style attributes, including, yes, K for Kitschy. Join us for a week free and try it out. And check out here on YouTube the other artists in this series from A to Z Exploring Style.